So, warm welcome to the session today. And our topic is humility. And I think I was not able to think about this subject without thinking about the balance that there is between humility and self respect, and how both of these are then connected with arrogance and the sense of worthlessness or lack of self-worth. You know? And so somehow seeing the whole picture, um, I feel helps me to understand humility in more depth. You know? But what I thought we could do actually is, before starting with that, and I want to show you a little table as well. But before that, I wanted to read a piece by Dadi Janki. So, and it's on humility, and I think it kind of sets the scene really nicely, because it talks about each of these four aspects. You know, whether it's humility or self-respect, or arrogance, or lack of self-worth. You know, so humility comes from understanding that the force behind whatever help you give to others comes not from you, but from the power of love. It is not true that if you are humble, others will walk over you, all over you. It is when there is no humility that you can be easily influenced by others and things seem difficult. But when there is humility, there is also the power of truth. You know internally that you will achieve your aim, regardless of what others say or think. A humble person never feels that they are bowing to others. No, so there's not the sense of being humiliated. No, so interesting to think of the difference between these two words, to not mix them up. The difference between humility and the sense of humiliation, bowing down. So a humble person never feels they are bowing to others. The head is neither held high nor lowered, just straight ahead like an angel. Humility reveals your truth. Ego makes you criticize others and get caught up in a web. Ego puts a lock on the intellect. And so, lock on the intellect in the sense that we're unable to think clearly. So it's like we don't have access to that power of discernment, the willpower, the clarity that an intellect, that has self-respect and humility can offer us. So ego puts a lock on the intellect, obscuring your responsibility. It says it's your fault. It has nothing to do with me. And humility is the key to this lock. It frees you from self-deception. Humility allows you to hear and obey your conscience. So, okay. So just this. Okay. So humility allows you to hear and obey your conscience. With humility, there is the power of realization, which allows transformation to take place. So the power of realization means that I shift my awareness. I shift what I know to be right, for example. So first, at one point, I might have thought, oh yes, a certain belief about or a certain attitude is a good thing, is something that I want to use, I want to apply in my life. And then I might have a realization that actually that did not have any foundation, or that's not important for me anymore. And so that realization means that I can actually transform something. I can let go of that belief. And the ability to actually do that is humility, because it's saying, oh, yes, what I understood before actually is now no longer useful to me. And so, with humility, there is the power of realization, which allows transformation to take place. The soul can recognize a mistake in a second. It's easy to settle any argument easily. Okay, I'm wrong. Humility makes the heart honest, big, and clean. It enables you to be cooperative and have easy relationships with everyone. Humility enables you to win God's heart and the hearts of others, and even your own heart. So, this is the power of humility. Inner conflict with your own feelings finishes, so confusions and difficulties also end. There is contentment, faith, and the feeling of love for everyone. And so, with this very beautiful description, very, somehow very rich description of what is humility, you know, I want to see if I can share with you my screen. So, share this. Okay. So, basically, just really I just put this together as a few thoughts to, to help us understand the context of humility. So it's a little bit like a balance, as always, as all the qualities are complements to each other. you know and so humility, true humility, has a percentage of self-respect within it. True self-respect has a percentage of humility within it. There are moments when we need a higher percentage of humility, and there are moments where we need a higher percentage of self-respect. You know? So let's see. Okay, and so and also just looking further down, then, is that when humility is missing for whatever reason, the reason in a sense is not what we're interested in, but if it's missing, if humility is missing in some interaction, in some moment, in some state of my consciousness, in some response, then what will take its place is that sense of worthlessness. No. And then the same thing with self-respect. So when self-respect is reduced in some way, then what steps in to substitute it is arrogance. No. Because it's all about our identity. It's all about who I think I am, who I consider myself to be. And so, as we know, ego basically is the identification, the attachment to a false identity of the self. And so it's very interesting even to see how, for example, true self-respect cannot be based on something that is external, transitory, or something that I have, in some way forced or snatched or somehow um, taken in some way, that I can't force respect and I can definitely not force self respect. No. And so um, self respect needs to be based absolutely on that which is true. And in order to do that, we need the humility to see what's true and to see what's false. No. Because very often the reality is that we live in a world that is really pretty false in terms of seeing the self, in terms of how we consider each other, the values that we give to things and people and society, what is considered good or bad, what is considered right or wrong, very often is based on something that is false, something that is not based on the truth of the soul, of the spiritual being. So, even for example, all the huge importance that's given to, for example, our physical appearance, you know, that it's believed that certain in society you have to look a certain way. It's if you're, in a certain if you have a certain look, then that's okay. And if you have another kind of look, then that's not okay. In a certain context, even that is okay. And it's not what is and isn't okay, very often is based on what the majority decides is okay, But what is really, you know, what's the truth about that? And so the self respect balanced with humility is founded on that which actually is invisible, which is so completely different from the arrogance of possessions, relationships, jobs, finances, intelligence, um, abilities, maybe even talents. And of course, the lack of all of that very quickly brings in the sense of self-worth, the sense of worthlessness. No. So just to look through some of these things, I mean, to see how when there's humility, there's no need to explain or blame or complain. Very often when someone is questioning our choices, it's very easy to find ourselves explaining or justifying why we made that choice. No, as if to, in some way, convince even ourselves that it's okay to make that choice. No. So, where there's humility, and of course, as you can see, there's a good percentage of self respect in that too. When there's humility and self respect, that I don't need to justify what I've chosen. You know, if I need to express that, or if someone is asking me, then I can express my intention for that choice. But if the intention is to somehow justify what I've done or what I didn't do, then that goes into the lower box of the sense of worthlessness, or obviously everything goes in degrees of intensity. And so when you think of the extreme sense of worthlessness, then really it's that state of apathy where you just really don't believe anything, that you are worth anything, and that really takes us into quite dangerous areas. And so we want to be able to lift ourselves as soon as we notice anything that is connected with that sense of worthlessness. We need to lift ourselves up and um, and see what are the what is it that actually is the truth about me. you know. no matter what other people are saying or um, what I'm saying to myself, even. And very often that's the case, is that we have our own narrative about ourselves and to ourselves. And so to be able to change that narrative, and to lift it into one where there is the balance of humility and self-respect. And I think that where there's humility, we're able to listen. you know if you've been in conversations where maybe you're someone is speaking, and and you might not agree with them, and in fact maybe they're saying something that is totally inappropriate or totally against, unfair or unjust or whatever. um, I think that humility is when I'm able to still listen to the being that is speaking, and come away from that sense of judging the person because of what they're saying, but to be able to listen to what's going on behind. And then the self respect comes in, where I'm able to express my view in a non shaming, non blaming way. No. And I think that is such a powerful thing to be able to do, because I mean, humility and self respect, especially humility, is a huge power. It's not just a beautiful quality, but it is a power. And I think that's something to remember, because what looks powerful is arrogance. What looks like it has, the muscle power, really, is the ego and arrogance. But actually, it's like an empty, like a paper tiger, that, or like a film that looks very real, but actually it's not. You know, and so to be able to listen from the heart, um, which of course means that we're able to connect with our own needs and value our, connect with our own needs and our feelings, and therefore we're able to connect with the same for other people, and also being uninfluenced by that. So not to be influenced by what someone thinks means that I can keep the clarity of what I think, and I can share it with that same standard, shall we say, my standard. So I represent myself as I would like to. So I'm not influenced by the energy and the level of the other person, whatever that might be. So someone's, shall we say, pitch, or tone might be one where, they want to make you feel bad, or they want to, because they're upset or angry about something, they say, oh, well, they say things that would normally be guilt inducing. And it was interesting that, this morning there was a phone call, and it was, someone from one of the public service institutions, for a health appointment for someone else. And um, and this other person was not able to hear very well, and so was, had given them some wrong information. And so the person from the health services was sort of grumbling and angry, and don't have all day, and anyway, you're all it's you that's right anyway. And I was as I was listening, because I was just helping this other person, as I was listening, I was really feeling, in a sense, how much this person must be stressed, and how it's just so normal to use methods, and to use another person to express your dissatisfaction with life and the insecurity. And it's like a chain reaction that had I absorbed that energy, um, I would, it's just waiting inside me to be passed on to someone else, really, consciously or unconsciously. And so that chain continues, the chain of, in a sense, blaming, putting down, offloading, you know, in order to feel better about the self. And that comes into the sense of lack of self-worth, that I need someone else, someone who in some ways weaker than me, to feel, to see their um, insecurity in order to feel better about myself. And so anyway, there are many things that I think we're often we become aware of, especially when we have these kind of meditative practices and reflective practices where we're looking at ourselves and we're observing in these little moments what's actually going on. But to be uninfluenced by the condition of the other person doesn't mean that I don't have compassion. But where there is real humility, then we can actually have compassion for the other person, rather than react and in a sense, criticize them for having behaved badly. um, which is very easy to do because maybe they did say things that were unpleasant and hurtful. No. Um, and so within humility, there's also this complete freedom of needing to look good in other people's eyes. So whether, in a sense, I mean, even in our working environment, um, sometimes we want people to think that yes, we're on the job, we're doing very well, you know we're on our computers all the time, and you know and so in a sense, it's it's the need um to be okay in other people's eyes. No, and that's something that again means that I'm not sure whether I'm okay, and so I need someone else to confirm to me. And so I think that when there is the humility, then we're able to see the truth about that. So it's about, in a sense, being good rather than looking good, And so good, of course, means strong or kind or compassionate or authentic, even, you know, which which may not look very good, but we're able to say, you know what, I'm not feeling so good today, and can we talk later? And so maybe you're not keeping up that image of being always available, always helpful, always cooperative at the drop of, someone's instruction, and you're there present and correct. And so um, within humility, I think there's this ability to be neutral as well, where we're able to listen to people giving feedback, for example, or what may come across as criticism, but to be neutral in the sense of free from judgment, free from that sense of um, being, in a sense, for or against, um, especially in certain situations. It is important to be clear about our position, and sometimes we need to take a position. But I think from the spiritual point of view, it's very useful to, in a sense, see it from the 360 degrees, which is like a spherical view. So you see it from above, from below, from the sides, from the center. Um, and then also able to ask for help. I think this is one of the characteristics actually that is sometimes very difficult, especially if there has been a self image of, of a lot of, that I'm self sufficient and I am strong and I'm, able to manage and I'm able to, it doesn't matter how much pain there is, I can keep going. And, it's very interesting to be able to try it out sometimes, that how I'm asking for help is also very important, and the humility comes in, is visible there. Basically, when I ask for help, am I able to hear a no? you know so if someone says, um no, I can't help you. No. How do I deal with that? And so sometimes we just can't bear to hear no, because we take it as a rejection of us, as a refusal of us. And so humility is being able to separate these things, the to separate in a sense, because I know who I am. And so that is different from what I'm doing, from what I need, from what, how I'm, who I'm interacting with, what task I'm involved with, etc. And so this, it's like the foundation of humility is certain facts that I am absolutely certain about myself. No. And that nothing will change that. So, I mean, some very basic things that we learn within this practice of meditation is, for example, I am an eternal being. No. That it doesn't matter what happens, I cannot die. The body can die, um, but I, the spiritual being, I continue and I am. I was, I am, and I will be. And just this awareness of a continued existence, which has a certain implication to me. What that means, it's okay that you exist. No. Because maybe the messages that we got as children, or later on, was that you have no worth, you shouldn't even exist. No. However, the fact is that I am. And that's amazing. So just this one thought, I am. And this has been remembered in, this word om, om. And that's all that means, is that I am. And then you can add to that that my original nature, my true nature, shall we say, is love. So I am love, I am peace, I am bliss, and I am light. These are certain, for me at least, certain aspects that are fundament, that are like a foundation that I can build my self respect and my humility upon. So that when and if and when um, the false ego, shall we say, or the arrogance or the sense of self, of worthlessness, when that falls down, what's left actually is, in fact, the truth about myself. And part of that truth could be that I realize that, okay, I've come a long way from being peaceful, but my truth is to be peaceful. Actually, I am strong. Actually, I am love. And so when I come back to that bottom line, in a sense, there's nothing below that. There's nothing that is truer than that. You know. And so this is something that I find personally as these thoughts, when things especially, if there is what they call a ego crunch, where something happens and some false support falls down. Of course it's very painful, because it's like being disillusioned, you know, were betrayed, or, you thought that someone was trustworthy and then you find out that they're not. You thought that someone would do something and then you find they're unreliable or they're dishonest, or you thought you could do something but then you find you couldn't. So certain what falls down there is maybe the image of the self or the image of others, or something that I used as a foundation that was like building a house on sand, and it's not worth building that. And if it falls down, well, it's probably, had every likelihood of falling down. And so what happens is that we gain wisdom from that, we gain experience. And the if we're able to use those moments, basically, which can feel like humiliation, when the ego falls down, then it's like a moment of humiliation. That's what it feels like. I'm sure we've all experienced this, in our own ways. And however, that moment is actually a very precious moment, because one, I've suddenly maybe realized the truth about something. It may not be a very beautiful truth, but at least it's true. Um, and I can build from that. I can build my humility. I can build my self respect from that. So it might be you made a mistake and everyone comes to know about it. So that's a moment where, okay, I realized that I made the wrong choices, and in fact, my intentions were not very clean. And so, but I realized that, and I realize, um, actually what would have been better to do, what would have been a stronger choice. And so, if I'm able to, in a sense, face that, then I can come through that humiliation and into humility, which then, um, actually, I think humility wins the hearts of people. So even if you might have passed through that moment where, where you feel exposed, but you come into your humility and self-respect, then what comes towards you is blessings. No, is that sense of respect for you, actually. And so the self respect is what, and humility is what, um, in a sense, emerges the respect from other people for us. And so it's an interesting thing. If I respect myself, then it's much more likely that others will respect me. And so, if I'm asking for respect from someone else, which is basically what arrogance is, that I want to, for example, I want to prove myself right because I want to show myself as strong so that people respect me, so that people consider that I am, the best, or they choose me, they give me attention, and they look at me, they don't, you know put me aside, but I'm in the forefront. I'm number one. And so that's a substitute. Basically, we use that as a substitute for our sense of self-worth. And so it's just interesting to notice these things, notice them in ourselves. And I find having a picture that kind of tells me the whole story about myself can be very useful. Looking at the square about the sense of worthlessness, where one of the biggest things is where we take things personally to our own detriment. So something happens and then you say, oh yeah, they said this because, you know because they wanted me to learn something about it, but maybe they said it just because that's what they were saying. And so we end up being very self-centered. Everything is about us, you know. And I think that's a very, in a sense, a limited state, a limited condition to be in, because our eyes are um, interpreting all the events around us as if we are responsible for that. And so actually it's based on arrogance, that I can control everything. I can control what you're doing, so because everything you do is because of me. And so, so it's, in a sense, it's quite funny actually when we think about it. It doesn't feel very funny, but it is quite, amusing when we think, oh, just like children, that everything that happens is because of me. And so we end up coming to these tragic conclusions, that, okay, well, you don't want me to be here anyway, so, I'm going. And maybe that wasn't true at all. And so a lot of that then results in behaviors such as, jealousy, or in some way things that result from dissatisfaction. So anyway, these are just a few ideas about these four aspects that I feel work together a lot. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts before we have a meditation, and to see if there's something you'd like to add to that. You feel that there's something missing from, I'm sure there's a whole lot more things that you could add to this list. It's really just an initial list, but the important thing is to observe the self, and to notice those moments where we're maybe falling into thoughts and feelings, um, of the lower two boxes, but also to notice and acknowledge the first two. I think it's important that we learn to appreciate our own learning, our own journey where we have learned things and we are learning. Okay, yes, before I used to react when this person spoke like that, but now, in fact, I'm able to hear it and maybe be amused by it, but it doesn't disturb me emotionally. And I heard this term recently called emotionally capable. And it was something that maybe you've heard of, this person called Dr. Gabor Mate, who, a very, very wise individual who, I'll write it in the chat box, who basically is a doctor, medical doctor, and I think also psychologist. Well, anyway, a doctor, Gabor Mate, something like that. And he has done numerous interviews and talks on YouTube. You can find hundreds of them. But he spoke of this ability to be emotionally capable, you know, which first of all means that we don't take things personally, and we're able to stay clear in the face of um, other people's emotional outbursts that may normally press our buttons. Um, and not just that, if we are disturbed, then we're quickly able to come back to our stability. No. And so that's just a very simplistic way of seeing it, but it was an interesting expression. So, if there's anything that you would like to share about all this, any comments, please do feel free to either unmute yourself or put it in the chat box, and then we'll have a meditation.
Hi,
Vansi.
Rana. It's
Yes.
Wati.
Hello.
I was just wondering where, also with arrogance, you get this, some people have this sense of superiority,
Mm.
almost talking down to people.
Yes.
Um, and and um, and I think sometimes we project that as people who go into communities. I saw this, it's like a cartoon, right? Where they were saying like the locals are watching these others come in and they say the migrants are coming. And then it says, no, we're the expats, we're the we're the experts and expats. So I think how much of that is, how much of that is also sort of found in arrogance and this sense of superiority, this sense of I know it all, and I'm giving you knowledge as opposed to we're learning from each other, which I think is humility, right?
Yes.
You have local knowledge, I have some knowledge from elsewhere, and we bring them together.
Exactly.
That's how it
Yes.
should be. But then you get some people who come with, I'm going to tell you how it is.
Mm.
So yeah, that was just my
Yes.
reflection as you
Yes.
spoke.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. It's really worthwhile checking what is our positioning, what is our attitude or prejudice, in a sense. Mm.
Hi,
Great.
hi. Good afternoon to everybody. I wanted to tell, excellent, this thematics humility is very nice, but I think it's completely necessary to have self-esteem to be human. And something that is, I like it, is emotionally capability that, as you mentioned, because it's linked with assertivity, I think. Because if you have a self-esteem or self-respect, you will be assertive, and you will be as well respecting to the other, and you won't be centralized, thinking that you are, I don't know, with sense of worthlessness, because I am not able, because no. The important thing is because humility means that you can ask for help, and for to ask as well, you need to have self-respect, because if you feel that you are so down, you won't ask, you will continue to go down. I think this is my reflection on.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Licia and Dominique, for your comments. Yeah, it's important to keep learning. And I think that's what keeps the enthusiasm, no, is that, you know, please, Eric.
Good morning, Rada.
Hello.
I repeat myself, but I feel that I'm looking at humility, starting always by using, when I speak, I do, I think, I feel. Because when I start with you, or we, or it is a question that I'm losing my humility. I'm speaking for someone else. It's something I'm trying to follow now. And it's quite incredible that it works, just being on yourself.
Mm.
Sometimes people will misinterpret the feeling that it's like egoistic, but most of the time it works.
Mm.
And it's a very tricky thing, I feel, when you have kind of role like leading or managing a group of people,
Yes.
work or not working.
Mm.
And I always try to stop to say you should or could you, or it's very difficult, but
Mm.
it's a totally different approach. And I learned a lot working with people who were supposed to be like in a position to talk or decide. I remember Pavarotti in a concert, and we were filming with a TV crew, and you were just asking a favor to the director, saying, "Can you better take me on that side because that's my best profile when I sing." And he was really humble to ask, because I prefer that side, if you don't mind. And after that, they started to talk about the position of the cameras. And the director was a little bit in trouble because Pavarotti was surprised to say, "Oh, I don't see you have the cameras on the left." Actually, it was very humiliating for the director to be criticized in somehow. But just because he said, I'm surprised. I see all the camera on the left. We all agree between technicians that the director was wrong. But Pavarotti was very kind and very smooth and soft. Just to say, I'm surprised I have to see all the cameras on one side in a theater. So I try to follow that, but it's difficult, I think, because sometimes I will say you, and or we, or this is the rule, or and it's. I think it's from there, it's staying on, because if I'm just thinking about what I feel, not what the other person should think or decide or do, whatever.
Yes, it's
I
about
try the
taking
same thing.
responsibility.
Yes. And now even in trouble to say, to ask someone else to do something. Say, even if I say, could you please take care of this? I will try to turn around in another way. I will say, oh, I hope today I will finish this, and I also have this, and that. And then I try to see if the other will understand that I need someone to do this, that. I try not to ask him.
Yeah.
And sometimes I will just do it, and then maybe they'll tell me, Eric, why don't you call me to do that? So, well, it needs to be done, and I don't know what you were doing, so I didn't want to ask him. But it's a long process, and I think it's a kind of key not to be aggressive or arrogant. And lately, sometimes I feel there is a danger that it looks like that people need some kind of arrogance from the person who is leading. And there is a lot of discussion about which kind of leader people now are supporting. Now we can talk about Mr. Trump, who is out. And that style of leadership, sometimes there is the impression that people who are insecure, or because of COVID, because the economic situation, are looking for strong, dominant, arrogant leaders.
Yes, well,
And
the
it's
thing
not
is that
only
we need a clear direction, right? That's the thing, is that however, when there is
if I may interrupt,
self-respect and humility, then you can still have the clear direction and a clear focus, but without imposing that.
yeah, just to stop you, Radha, because you say we. I try not to use we. I say what I feel, because I feel it's already too much to say we. I'm just taking an example right now with you commenting what I'm saying. And I'm just not talking about Trump, because we have Bolsonaro, we have the leader in Poland, in Hungary, in Italy we have Salvini. It's not just, to criticize one person, is a trend. And on the opposite, I feel when I try to be soft, some people told me, Eric, you should be more aggressive, more leader. And I said, what does that mean, more leader? What's
Well,
your
this is
point
the thing,
about?
is that
You want?
each person needs to find out what is right for them.
Yeah.
So if other people are
Yeah.
telling me what's right for me, then I need to take responsibility for making my choices. No. Otherwise, I'm going to end up blaming them. I'm just seeing the comments also in the chat box, and then we'll move on to the meditation if that's okay. So I see linking the root with humus that helps new growth. Okay, so humility comes from that, which means new growth, I guess. Thank you, Anna. And humor, that We are confident we can love ourselves.
At ourselves.
Oh, we can love at ourselves.
At
Oh,
ourselves,
laugh.
yeah.
Laugh at
Laugh.
ourselves. Yes,
Laugh
yes,
at
I see.
ourselves. Yeah, I write
see.
quickly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And the link
yes.
in the root with
Yes, yes. We can take ourselves lightly. And then says Watsi, not asking can also be passive aggressive. It builds resentment and then it's wrong. Yes, I mean I do feel that too, that sometimes it's better to ask directly and be able to take a no rather than hinting. No? So humility is not incompatible with honesty. If I need something, I can ask. Yes. Yes, and so I think we need to find the ways that work for us, and little by little we refine them and adjust them. No? So this is something interesting to work on. No? So maybe we can have our meditation now, just a few minutes, and so I will stop this share and share the music. Okay. I hope you hear that okay. So take a deep breath and feel all the energies in my body relaxing. I can feel the breath in my body energizing and refreshing. And at the same time, I connect with that safe space within. My inner laboratory, my inner sanctuary. From where I can see clearly. I can see myself. And I can see my context. I can readjust my positioning, my intentions, my response. I can look at my choices and my beliefs and what's important to me right now. I can connect with the Supreme. And I can see the humility in that greatness. I connect with the immense love that flows from the Supreme. And as it flows into my being, I can feel my own energy of love. of compassion. Flourishing and expanding. And as I live and learn, I can choose to be in the light and step out of the shadows of falsehood, of sorrow. I don't need to hide anymore. As I see myself as I am, I fully accept my being. And so I take another deep breath and very gently bring my attention, my awareness once again to my physical surroundings. I see another comment in the box where humility is so important. For me, it feels so good to ask for help. And if I get it, it's great. So accepting others' weakness is part of humility as well. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you to everyone for your comments, for your presence, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Radha. It was a wonderful presentation, so rich.
Thank you. Thank you.